This video is the second video for the Windows Server Home Lab series. In this video, we will be discussing and doing some activities on group policy management. There are two parts for this video. The first part is creating and setting up GPOs, and the second part is implementing and testing those GPOs we created. Before we get started and proceed with creating GPOs, make sure that you have these prerequisites installed first. So make sure you have the Windows Server installed with Active Directory tools and GPMC tools installed, because that's where we are going to create the GPOs. Before we get started with creating GPOs, let's talk about GPO. GPO stands for Group Policy Object. It's a collection of policies and Active Directory that can be applied to domains and OUs. So GPOs are used by admins to manage settings that are applied in user and computers. Let's go ahead and open Group Policy Management settings. Click on Windows Administrative Tools, go down, and Group Policy Management. So this is GPMC, which is also known as Group Policy Management Console, and it's a centralized system where you can manage all of the group policy settings and all of the assets or objects within your domain. Okay, so let's navigate GPMC. Under the forest, you will see domains. Under the domains, you will see your local domain, which we previously created for our Active Directory domain controller, and you will see built-in OUs along with our previously created OUs where we can put our group policies. So these were the previously created OUs, so we can put after we create our GPOs, we can put our GPOs in the respective OUs. Okay, I'm going to open one of the default group policy objects. So if you go down over here, right click on it and click on Edit. So this is where we create different policies for our domain. As you can see, there is a computer configuration and a user configuration. These are the different types of configuration for the policies that you want to create. There is a difference on these two. You can just create like any policy you want. It also depends on what you need to do and how you want to apply the configuration or policy. Okay, now I'm going to explain the difference between computer and user configuration so that you will know what GPOs you want to create. Let's talk about the computer configuration first. It means that you can apply to the local computer and it do not change per user. So this is only limited to the settings you want to do on the computer itself and not the users who are logging into the computer. Now for the user configuration, it applies to the users on the local machine and will apply to any new users in future on this local computer. So it's kind of self-explanatory in a way that user configuration only applies to the users and the computer configuration only applies to the computers. So if you're still confused about the difference, let me show you how it is applied on Active Directory users and computers. So for example, you have all these OUs and objects such as users and computers. So to simply explain it, the computer configuration is only applied on the computer asset under your computer. If you want to create settings or policies for all your computers, you will use computer configuration. This is where you are going to create a GPO. If you want to apply the policies to your users, like people working in your company, you will use the user configuration GPO to create it. Now we know the difference between the user configuration and computer configuration. If we check under those configurations, you can see policies and preferences. So let me explain what is policies and preferences. So basically, policies can't be changed by the users. So these are enforced by the Active Directory. Policies restrict the user choices and can only be enforced by the admins. Password policies and account lockout policies are some of the examples of policies, because once they are enforced, the users won't be able to change the policy. The user won't be able to change how many characters would be required for password, as the policy has already been enforced. If the user's account is locked out, they won't be able to unlock the account. Only the admins can unlock the account. So these are some of the examples of policies. So the next would be the preferences. And this one is kind of opposite to the policies. It can be changed by the users. These are settings that we can set by default, but users can also be able to modify and change whatever settings are. For example, the users can have like a default mapped network drives, but they can also add network drives if they choose to. Some of the examples are like printer setups and desktop shortcut setups. So by default, or whenever they log in, we can set up like a default for the users on their desktop shortcuts, but later on the user can change their desktop shortcuts. They can add desktop shortcuts if they want to. They can also add more printers if they want to, apart from the settings that they already have. So that's the main differences between policies and preferences. Okay, we will now be creating our very first GPO. For this first activity, we will be setting up a password policy GPO, and this is setting up a password policy to enforce strong passwords and enhance security. Okay, go to your GPMC, right click on your local domain, create a GPO in this domain, and we're going to name this GPO password policy. Click OK. Okay, we can see it has created the GPO over here. It's called the password policy. Right click on the GPO, click on edit, and it should show you the group policy management editor here that we talked about earlier. So for the password policy, it should be under computer configuration because it's the computer that is asking for the password when you are logging in. And for the policies and preferences, it is the policies because this policy should never be altered or changed by the user. It should be enforced by the admins. So let's select on the policies. Click on the Windows settings. Click on security settings. Expand this and click on account policies. And here you can see the password policy. Click on this and you'll be able to see different password options in here. So when you click on the password policy, you should see the different settings you can set up for our GPU. So we are going to change the minimum password length, the complexity, the requirements, and the password age. So let's click on the maximum password age. Let's set this to 90 days. And I think it's going to automatically set the minimum days to 30. Yeah, it says 30. Okay, click on OK. Maximum password length. We're going to set this to 12 characters. Click on apply. Okay. And password must meet the complexity requirements. Yeah. And enable it. So basically what this does is it's going to follow the password rules set by the Windows server. Click on OK. And yeah, that's it. You have created your very first GPOs. Okay, that is how you create a GPO. We will be implementing this GPO later, but for now we will be creating more GPOs. Okay, for our next GPO, we are going to create a drive mapping GPO, and this maps network drives for users when they log in. So right click on the Black Rain local, create a GPO, drive mapping, click OK, and right click on drive mapping, edit, and between the computer configuration and the user configuration, it is going to be user configuration. It is because the user is the one who will be using this policy, and between policy and preferences, it should be preferences because the user can later on modify or alter this GPO. They can add drive maps later on, so it is not really just restricted to the drive maps they have. So we should choose preference for this GPO. So let's go under user configuration, preferences, Windows settings, and drive maps. Right click on it, new, map drives. And for the location, you can put the path of the network share. For example, you can just name it server name and the location of the folder. So let's just name it server name, and let's just say folder, and select the drive, let's say E for us, and click on apply. Okay, and it should appear over here. Okay, close that one. So the next GPO we will be creating is the desktop wallpaper policy, and this sets the default wallpaper for all users. So right click on the local domain, create a GPO, and we're going to be naming this desktop wallpaper. So click OK, right click on the GPO which we just created, edit, and for this GPO between computer configuration and user configuration, we're going to be using user configuration because we want to apply this GPO whenever the user logs in. And between policies and preferences, we will be using policies because we don't want the user changing the desktop wallpaper, so they should be enforced by admins and cannot be changed by the users. So let's go to user configurations and go under policies. Let's go under administrative templates, go under desktop, click on desktop, and we want to click on desktop wallpaper. So for this task, what I'm going to do is I want to make this wallpaper the default wallpaper for all the users. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to click enable, and I'm going to set a path. So the path is going to be C Windows Web Wallpaper, and let's see the path one more time. The path's going to be, and the name of the wallpaper is going to be 7.jpg, and we're going to style the wallpaper as fill. Click on apply and click on OK. Okay, next we will create a GPO to restrict access to control panels. So right click on the local domain, create a GPO, and we're going to name this restrict control panel. Click on OK, and right click on the GPO just created, edit. And for this GPO we'll be using user configuration because it is the user that will be using this configuration. And between the policies and preferences, we will be using policies because we don't want the users to be changing this. So let's go under user configuration and under policies and under administrative templates and control panel. And what we're going to do is select this one over here, prohibit access to control panel and PC settings. So what we're going to do is click on enable, apply, OK. Okay, so this is going to be the last GPO we will be creating for this video. We will be creating a GPO to disable USB storage. So same as the last time, click on the local domain, create GPO, and we're going to name this disable USB storage. Click on OK. Right click on the GPO we just created, edit. And for this GPO we'll be using computer configuration because we are applying it directly on this computer. So it is a settings for computer instead of the user. And between policies and preferences, it is policy because we don't want users to change it. So let's go under computer configuration, policies, administrative templates, system. Let's expand this, and we have to find a removable storage. And we're going to select all removable storage classes, deny all access. So we're going to click on this, enable, apply, OK. So in this video, we have created 5 GPOs. And so in the next video, we will be applying these GPOs on different client machines to test if they are working. So see you in the next video.